It's one thing to rage bait for views, but what makes Jack Doherty's story unsettling is how consistently he crossed lines and how rarely there were consequences. Over the years, his name stopped being associated with harmless internet antics and instead became linked to allegations of exploitation, manipulation, violence, and a total disregard for the people around him. Through it all, one theme stayed constant. Content came first, no matter the cost. Whether it was other creators, random strangers, employees just trying to do their jobs, girlfriends, or even his own safety, everything and everyone became disposable if it meant more attention. For people who somehow managed to stay outside the online clout ecosystem, Jack Doherty didn't appear out of nowhere. He had been online since childhood. At just 12 years old, he went viral during the 2016 bottle flipping era, pulling in tens of millions of views while most kids his age were still worried about homework. That level of fame, that early, would have been difficult for anyone to handle. In Jack's case, it set the tone for everything that followed. Instead of learning restraint, boundaries, or responsibility, he learned that shock and annoyance translated directly into views, money, and validation. As his channel grew, his content shifted from innocent tricks to increasingly intrusive behavior. He started showing up uninvited at places he clearly didn't belong, including the Faye's house. This wasn't a spontaneous walk down the street. His mother drove him there, fully aware that he was bothering people for content. That moment alone says a lot about how his behavior was enabled rather than corrected. When Faze refused to engage, Jack didn't reflect or stop. He simply moved on to the next targets, setting his sights on figures like the Paul brothers during a time when outrage content was becoming profitable by design. While others eventually recognized the limits of that style of content and pivoted, Jack leaned into it harder. He began filming himself being obnoxious in public places, harassing employees, and manufacturing confrontations. Eventually, those confrontations escalated into false accusations, including claiming he'd been assaulted by store workers. Despite how reckless this was, the views kept coming. According to Jack himself, he was making tens of thousands of dollars a month as a teenager. At 15, he bought a house. That kind of financial reward reinforced the idea that nothing he did was wrong, as long as it performed well. His behavior escalated alongside his income. He even got arrested, not for something accidental, but deliberately pretending to be drunk and harassing police officers for content. Even then, the consequences were minimal. His parents expressed concern publicly, but behind the scenes, the priority was clear. The revenue stream mattered more than his education, his mental health, or the example being set. He eventually got expelled from high school, but by then, school was irrelevant. Jack was already fully committed to being a professional nuisance. By the time he appeared on Dr. Phil, Jack openly admitted that he planned to stop once he turned 18, not because he felt remorse, but because being a minor shielded him from real legal consequences. The plan made sense financially. He already had more money than he could reasonably spend. He could have walked away comfortably. But at some point, it stopped being about money. The attention itself became addictive. Being disliked didn't matter. In fact, it seemed to fuel him. When his YouTube views started dipping as he approached adulthood, he didn't adapt or mature. Instead, he doubled down. In 2023, he shifted his focus to Kick and leaned fully into IRL streaming, amplifying everything that had already made him controversial. His streams revolved around provoking people in public, often with a massive security guard stepping in to intimidate anyone who reacted. Unlike staged prank channels, these encounters weren't scripted. The anger was real, and in at least one case, it ended in real violence when his bodyguard assaulted a much smaller man. Calling that a prank stretches the word beyond recognition. When Jack was sued over the incident, he attempted to pass responsibility onto his insurance provider, as if paying premiums somehow covered criminal behavior. It didn't. But even that didn't slow him down. This was just another step in a steady descent where every boundary that existed before was treated as optional. Around the same time, Jack moved into a different kind of exploitation. Instead of relying solely on pranks, he began openly promoting OnlyFans. He posted YouTube shorts featuring models he managed, linking their pages directly. Once again, his mother appeared in these videos, raising serious questions about how much she knew and how much she was willing to ignore. Over time, the role Jack played shifted from promoter to manager, and allegations began surfacing that the arrangement was far darker than it appeared on the surface. In 2023, accusations emerged suggesting Jack had groomed underage girls, waited for them to turn 18, pressured them into contracts, and taken nearly all of their earnings. These claims came first from Natalie Reynolds, whose credibility was questionable, but were later echoed by another streamer who provided details that aligned disturbingly well. Still, these remained allegations. No formal charges were filed, and the girls involved never came forward publicly. But even unproven, the accusations painted a consistent picture of someone who treated people as assets rather than humans. As 2024 rolled around, Jack's personal life and public image continued to deteriorate. A fight with another streamer, Neon, was emblematic of how far things had fallen. The altercation itself was almost pathetic, involving missed punches, torn clothing, and posturing by bodyguards. Yet even here, Jack managed to come off worse, attempting a sucker punch from behind rather than confronting the situation directly. The irony was hard to miss. Even among other controversial streamers, Jack couldn't maintain relationships. That same year, his recklessness escalated into something far more dangerous. While streaming, he texted and drove on a foggy, wet road, eventually crashing his car. His cameraman was injured. Multiple lives could have been lost. Miraculously, no one died. Kick banned him for endangering lives, and even his own brother publicly supported the ban, saying Jack needed to learn that he wasn't invincible. For a moment, it seemed like reality had finally caught up, but it didn't last. He was unbanned months later, effectively confirming that even something that serious carried no lasting consequences. Shortly after, he crashed a boat into a yacht, then made the baffling decision to wedge his body between the vessels as they collided. Once again, disaster was narrowly avoided, and once again, it became content. Behind the scenes, his relationship with his girlfriend McKinley was unraveling. Publicly, Jack blamed his busy schedule and streaming obsession. Privately, McKinley later described a relationship built on pressure, manipulation, and fear. She claimed Jack pushed her into OnlyFans as a condition of being with him, pressured her to sign contracts without legal counsel, and used money, access, and control as leverage. According to her, he normalized drug abuse, encouraged excessive Adderall use, and fostered an environment where exhaustion and dependency were the norm. She described emotional degradation on stream, constant humiliation disguised as jokes, and paranoia that kept her from being alone. Her weight dropped to dangerous levels. She alleged that Jack flipped a golf cart onto her for a clip, sending her to the hospital, while he continued streaming elsewhere. This incident was documented on video, removing any doubt that it happened, even if intent remains disputed. The breaking point came after repeated cycles of apologies followed by escalation. McKinley alleged physical abuse, intimidation, threats involving firearms, and attempts to isolate her from her family. When she finally left, Jack allegedly bombarded her with messages, alternately begging, threatening, and trying to sabotage her income by locking her out of her accounts. When she went back with police to retrieve her belongings, body cam footage showed Jack yelling, posturing, and attempting to assert control even in front of officers. Afterward, the pattern continued. Apologies turned into blame. Requests turned into demands. When he couldn't regain control, he allegedly threatened destruction, legal action, and self-harm. Eventually, when McKinley cut ties completely, Jack redirected his anger toward the people helping her, even attempting legal intimidation before backing down. None of these claims have been fully adjudicated in court. That matters. But it also doesn't erase the broader pattern that has followed Jack Doherty from childhood into adulthood. Over and over, the same behavior appears in different forms: provocation, exploitation, escalation, then minimal accountability. Each time, the bar moves lower,